y'all. Welcome to Benevolence, where kindness matters and all are welcome to the table. I'm your host, Ceci Diaz. As always, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for supporting Benevolence Podcast. I pray that as you tune in every week, you are empowered, blessed, and encouraged to be the best version of yourself. You are tuning into episode 5, Daughter of a King. On this episode of Benevolence, we will be chatting virtually with our special guests. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. On this episode of Benevolence, I have a very special guest joining me at the table today. She is actually the sister of our previous guest, Ed Marie Rivera. She is a beautiful woman of God and is an amazing mother and wife. Today, we are chatting virtually due to our long distance, and I'm so excited to have her here to share her testimony with us today. So without further ado, I have Alexandra Martina joining me at the table today. Hey, girl.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
Thank you. It's so great to have you. First off, thank you so much for your willingness. I know this is a big step for you.
Yes.
And we did read our testimonies a couple years ago, but now I know you're taking like another step forward and being a little bit more detailed in your testimony. So, but I know that your story must be heard. So, and I know it's going to bless our listeners for sure. So thank you again.
Of course. I'm nervous.
You're going to be good. You're going to be great. But before we begin, before you tell us your story, why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Okay. My name is Alexandra Martina. I was previously Alexandra Rivera.
Mm-hmm.
I am Pastor Edgar Rivera and Claudia Rivera's oldest daughter, which is, and Marie's my sister, and Edgardito's my brother. I am 30 years. I just turned 30 last August.
Oh.
And I know it was definitely an interesting one because I happened to be pregnant. I know it was fun, but it wasn't so fun. But I am a mother of 2. I have 2 daughters, Amelia, who's 3, and Emily, who's 6 months. I am a wife to Robert, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, actually. I'm blessed, and I'm able to stay home and raising our girls. I am the youth leader at our church, El Centro Cristiano, in Deerfield Beach, and excited to do this.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. Thank you so much. Well, without further ado, whenever you're ready, you can share with us what God has done in your life.
All right. This is like the first time that I've actually like sat down and like had to really remember a lot of things in detail. So I went through so many emotions going back to the past.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad because there was a lot of things that I let out of my chest. So it was really good. So, all right. So I am actually from Guatemala. My family originally is from Guatemala, and I was born in Guatemala City. I have 2 parents, my mom and my dad. My biological parents met in Guatemala, and they got married. They had 4 girls. They had Claudia, they had Viviana, and then they had Margarita, and then they had me. I am the youngest of the 4 girls. And my mom, traditional household in, most Latin countries, I would assume is, the dad works, the mom stays at home and takes care of the house and takes care of the kids. So that was the structure of the house, I guess. And everything, to me, through pictures, I don't remember a lot of Guatemala. Through pictures, it seemed like everything was pretty well. There's pictures of family vacations, of my Claudia's quince. There was it seemed like to me, it seemed like a good family,
Yeah.
The dream, and but it wasn't like that. During their marriage, my mom experienced physical, verbal, emotional abuse from my dad. He was very unfaithful to my mom as well. He actually has 2 kids from 2 different women that were conceived during their marriage.
Wow.
I have a half sister and a half brother.
Okay.
I have a sister actually that was born the same year I was born.
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. And my mom, took it all because that was just what, I guess, you just take it, you just take it. He's the one that brings the money to the table. So you just take it. And, so one day, I guess my dad just decided to, come to live to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the reason, but, he decided to move here straight to Florida. Mm-hmm. And he first brought Claudia and Viviana, that were the oldest at that time. Claudia was 16, I believe, and Viviana was 15. And his plan was to come here and live with a woman, one of the moms that lived here in West Palm Beach. Well, he took them to go live with the mistress and left my mom, me, and Margarita in Guatemala. Okay. When he came over here, when he went to live with the woman and Claudia and Viviana, the woman apparently bought a house and told my dad that they were only allowed to come live with them if they had bowed down to her. Oh my God. I know, which they didn't. So he just left them in the streets. Oh no. Yeah. They speak about how he just told them, all right, well, there you go. He went back to Guatemala. And at this time, he decided to bring my mom, my sister, and myself here, which we don't know why, honestly. Like, we to this day, we don't understand, but he did. He brings us here, and he dropped my mom off at someone's house for her to just clean their house. Took me and Margarita. Margarita, I want to say, she's 6 years older than me. So I was about 3. So she was, 9 or so. And so we go live with him and this mistress. This lady, if I was to even begin to tell you, top evil stepmother, that was like a kind word. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, she was very mean. Like, to this day, like, we speak and we're like, why was she so mean to us? Like, we didn't do anything to her. She would do horrible things. I was a kid, so I can only eat so much. And she would like serve dinner, and like my dad was like very strict with, you have to finish meals and you don't waste food. And I would finish my meals, and she would come behind my dad's back and like refill my plate and say I didn't eat. Oh my God. Yeah, I know it. I'm like, wait a minute, like I ate. And there's a form of punishments that she thought they would be fair. Like, she would like put me in I was scared of the tortoise. Am I saying that right? Okay. A tortoise. Yeah, she had a huge one in her house. I don't know why, but she would just like put me in the room locked in with a tortoise. And I mean, I was like 3 or 4 years old. I was terrified of it. So different from my kid, because my kid loves them. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I was so terrified of them. Are you still scared of them? No. Because I know some people just, they hold that for life. You know what I mean? Right. No, I mean, I was a kid, and it was a different country. It was a different woman. Like, I wasn't, it was a different home. Like, I don't know. I mean, I was a kid, and I mean, now it's not like that anyways. But, but yeah, she was not very nice. But I don't know, when my sisters were out in the streets, they got a hold of my mom. My biological mom. They got a hold of her, and they realized, wait a minute, like, we're together, we got to go get Ale and Margarita. Yeah. And so they found out the school that I was at, and from what I'm told is that my dad and his mistress had flown back to Guatemala for I don't know what, and a family member reached out to my sisters and said, hey, they're here, like, this is your chance, go get them, they're in school. I don't know who we were left with, but oh wow, I know. So my sister Isn't that crazy? It sounds like a
That is
movie.
crazy. Yes.
So apparently my mom and my sisters went and got me and my other sister. So it was like a rescue. And so that was like in West Palm, and then that's Palm Beach County. And then we end up in Pompano Beach. There's like a street called Hamelsville. And if you're from around this area, Hamelsville is not a place for, 4 young girls and their mom to be living in alone.
Yeah.
So we were renting out this like efficiency, and we were blessed to be able to find a roof and a place to stay, which was a blessing. But this place was just so small, and the neighborhood was a rough neighborhood. And I remember like living there, and it was super tiny. It was unit number 4. They no longer exist. They had to like tear those things down. But this efficiency only had like a small kitchen and a bathroom, and the room was like everything, like, humble beginnings, let's just say. Yeah. And from that place, I remember we were able to upgrade to efficiency number 1. So we're just, this is just us moving there, just for a bigger place, because we were 5. It was 5 of us living in a little room, and so we go from there. I don't really remember too much about this place just because I was so young. Yeah. But in this, when we were living here in Pompano, in that area, I remember that there was a man named Hermano Hector Gomez. He was like heavenly sent to us. He was like the man that would drive the church's van. Yeah. And he came, back then, they would just drive the van into neighborhoods and pick up people and take them to church. And he met Claudia and invited Claudia to church. And Claudia was just like, whoa, I like this. Like, knowing what we had gone through, like this, it felt good to go to church. And she loved it, and she brought all of us. And back then, it used to call, it was called El Evangelio Completo. Like very Pentecostal. Yeah. Very Pentecostal. And this church, it was, el pastor was Pastor Pablo Balbaran, and then my grandma took over the church. Wow. Pastora Marta Rivera, she took over when he left. So, yeah, so, and then the name changed. Okay, so that's just a fun fact, I guess. So from that place, it was rough. We ended up leaving. I remember we moved to what we call the Blue Apartments on Dixie. It was just still in Pompano. This is all still in Pompano. And we go to live in the Blue Apartments. This was where Claudia meets Pastor Edgar. Okay. Wow. This is when Claudia meets Pastor Edgar. And so yeah, and those apartments, I'm telling you each place that I lived in, because each one of them has such a crucial memory, Absolutely, of course. And how often we were constantly having to get up and go because of finances, and there were not just if my mom was working, my sisters ended up having to work because there was no money to support all these mouths. So yes. All right, so in the Blue Apartments, Pastor Edgar meets Claudia. They start dating. And the one thing I remember about this place is I had a cat. I had a cat named Chester. And this cat was so special to me. My mom found this cat in a dumpster. Okay. And she found him as a kitty, and she found him, and she thought, hey, Ale would like this. So she brought me this cat, and it was a kitty, and I had it, for a while, to where it was just like grown, and, it was like my comfort, like the one thing I had to myself. And one day, I let Chester out to use the bathroom, and he's gone. Wow. And I was like so scared. I was like, oh my God, like, somebody took Chester, or Chester ran away. And come to find out, my dad actually was around. I don't know where he comes from. Again, like he comes and takes my cat and throws him off the highway. Oh my God. It's just, yeah, my dad, he would like disappear. Like when he went to Guatemala, we didn't hear from him, and then he would just randomly pop up and like do just random things. Like,
yeah,
it's so weird. But
and it seems like it was like intentional to hurt you guys in some way or form.
Yeah,
you know, or
I
would
guess
you see it that way, or
yeah. I mean, to some extent,
or you think he was maybe upset at your mom? I
No,
don't know.
that I mean, once I keep telling you, you'll find out who.
Yeah.
His name was Edgar as well. Isn't that
Oh
crazy?
God.
Yes, his real name was Edgar, and
Wow.
it's so he just that Edgar was special.
Yeah, yeah. Oh.
So from then, the blue apartments, we go to live in what we call the yellow apartments. We lived so often that we had like names for these places, and same city. Here is where Claudia actually leaves because she gets married to Pastor Edgar.
Okay.
So, here, but before then, my real mom, my biological mom, my dad and her separated because, my dad was just out and about doing his thing. And when he brought us here, he just kind of like brought us here to fend for ourselves, kind of, just like it was so weird. And so my mom they weren't together, and she meets a man, a man who, steals her heart. And he didn't live in the same city. He lived a few hours away north from us. And, she starts traveling to see him. The traveling became a little more frequent, became more frequent with longer stays. And one day she just didn't come back.
Oh my goodness.
And my mom, he just, I don't know, to this, she just gets up and goes. And I kind of remember the day, actually, the last time that I saw her walk out the door. Wow. I was about 5 years old. And I was in the living room, and she came back in to take a bird she had as a pet.
Yeah.
Yeah, she took a bird, and that was it. I used to sleep with my mom, and these apartments were so. Oh my God, I'm like so nervous because I'm like reliving all this. Like, yeah, my mom. That was when my mom. That was the last place I lived with my mom.
Yeah.
I used to sleep with her. And I remember that, like, when she was gone, I would cry and cry and cry and cry and cry because I knew she wasn't coming back. I actually used to sleep with a picture of her underneath my pillow, just to kind of feel her close to me,
Yeah.
And that picture is what I have as my caller ID for her now.
Oh, wow.
Just I don't know. It's just, I was a kid. I didn't have my mom.
Yeah.
I used to sleep with my mom. I didn't have my dad.
Yeah.
I had my sisters, but you're talking about, my sisters they were all going through the same thing too. You know?
For sure. Because they all have their own story as well.
Exactly. They're 4 girls, and we're all going through the same thing. Obviously, I'm a child, I'm a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't understand a lot of things, but here's where my mom actually takes up and goes, and she takes her stuff, and we actually I don't believe we saw her again until Pastor Edgar and Claudia's wedding.
Oh my goodness. No way.
They got married, and she's in the pictures.
So,
she's gone. This is when she leaves, and she starts a whole new life. To this day, I don't understand why, you don't take your kids, you take your kids and go live somewhere. But,
exactly.
She has her own reasonings. And so it's just us 4 girls left behind. No dad, no mom.
Wow.
Actually, Claudia, she had to drop out of high school to work because she was the oldest, and now she's had to take on, her sisters, and while planning a wedding. Wow. And it was crazy. Like, so I want to say they got married in 97.
Okay.
They've been married for a long time. I want to say it's 97. So, anywho, they get married, and so it's just once she leaves, now she had all the right to, she's getting married, and my dad's, he comes in and out. I felt like at one point my mom and my dad like tag team, she was out, he would come. When he would go, she would come. Until one point they both just stopped coming.
Oh my goodness.
So Viviana was the second oldest. She's now watching over me, Margarita, and she happens to have a daughter. She was a teen mom, and she had her daughter. We call her Mena, and we're there. And again, my dad's in and out. And one day that he actually comes to the house, it was a Sunday night. He comes and he kicks us out. My dad was the kind of man that he was un mujeriego. I don't know how to say that. A womanizer, isn't that? Okay.
Yep.
Big time.
Wow.
And one day, he had an urge. He had a woman. He comes to he comes knocking on the door and tells us, "Get out." It's 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday. You would think I'd be in bed already, getting ready for the next day. And he kicks us out. Me, Viviana, Margarita, and Viviana's daughter. Kicks us out, tells us, go somewhere, like, find somewhere to be. I need this place right now.
Oh my goodness.
It was,
was he in, like, did he rent the apartment at least, or was
I'm not sure who paid the bills. I'll be honest with you. To this day, I don't know how we paid bills, because my mom, I want to say my mom worked, but I don't know how. I mean, this is why we were always constantly moving. Like, my dad, I don't know. Like, honestly, who Viviana, if Viviana was in charge, my mom was gone, so she wasn't paying anything. But honestly, I can't even say if my dad did. Even if he did or didn't, he was going to make himself the king of the house,
Exactly.
So one night he like kicks us out, and Viviana found herself in the street with all of us. And she decides, I'm just going to walk to the nearest gas station. And she calls Pastor Edgar. Once Pastor Edgar came into our lives, he became like our hero. Like, we would call him when we needed him to defend us, to protect us. He became our protector.
Yes, for sure.
So I remember, like, she called him and said, "Hey, like, we need help. Like, we're out in the streets." He comes, and if you know Pastor Edgar, he comes and he's in full rage. Like, he's ready to fight somebody, because he couldn't, comprehend, like, how do you kick your daughters out in the street, and for that reasoning. That night it was a nasty fight between them. Not physical, but he had to defend us. He defended us that night, and which my dad was not a fan of anybody confronting him, whether he was wrong or right. He was the man, and and my dad comes, Pastor Edgar comes, and he tells my dad, "Hey, you gotta go. Like, if you're gonna do this, do it somewhere else." And the woman that he had there that night, we all had nicknames for them, and we used to call her La Sabrosa, like, because we were just like, there was just something, we had to make fun out of this situation. So we would just be like, "Oh, which woman was that?" So Pastor Edgar kicks my dad out, tells him to go somewhere else. We go in our house, we go to sleep. The next morning, my dad got very physical with Viviana for calling for help.
Wow.
My dad, my real dad, had a problem with women.
Yeah.
He had a very sick problem. He wasn't a drug addict. He wasn't an alcoholic, but his addiction was women. There was not enough women for him. There was not, one woman at a time was a joke, and so he just, whenever he had a chance with a woman, it was, even if it was just kids out in the streets, he was going to have that woman, he was going to make things available for them.
Yeah.
So anyhow, from those apartments, no place that we ever lived in lasted long.
Yeah.
We actually, from there, we end up going to, this is my dad. My dad does something or we do something to him apparently, and he gets upset and takes off, and then we don't hear from him. So then we find ourselves like, hey, we need to move again.
Yeah.
And we had so many people in our church that were willing to help us, extended, they welcomed us with open arms at all times. And there was this, his name was Hermano Juan. And they used to own a house in Deerfield, which is really close to Pompano, and they had an efficiency in the back. And at this time, it was just Viviana, Margarita, Viviana's daughter, and myself, and we go live in that efficiency because that's, all we can afford, I guess. And we go there. We live with them. They help, they knew the situation. They try to make the best out of it. They try to, he had 2 sons, and they just tried to give me, teach me, how to ride a bike. And, they extended their they were always so sweet to us. And from then, my dad comes back.
Oh, wow.
He comes back, and we rent out a house in the same area. He doesn't last. We go live somewhere else, constantly moving.
Yeah.
The moral of the story, we're constantly moving because it's very inconsistent.
Yes.
He's very inconsistent. My mom's gone, so our only hope is my dad, my real dad. At one point, my Viviana gets married. Then it's Margarita and me left. Margarita ends up having to leave to go move with my mom, and it's just me. Now this is where I gave you all the rundown of how it's just me. From when it's me, my dad finds himself like, no one else can take care of me. Like, who's going to take care of me? Mind you, I'm a child. I'm not, I can't fend for myself. At this time, I'm only 9 years old. All of those times I'm moving, it's only been 9 years.
Wow.
So it's 9-10 years, whatever. And he finds, wait, now I have to take her with me. So majority of the time, I have always spent with Claudia, who is my oldest sister, and she's always taken me every time my dad le daba su cosa, he was just in his thing. I would always end up with Claudia, always even if I somewhat lived with my dad, it was just at nighttime. The whole day was with Claudia. He'd just pick me up, I'd go to sleep, start the next day, go to school, go with Claudia.
Oh my God.
And that didn't last long because at one point, his lifestyle, I was a burden on him. And he was, putting the responsibility on Claudia. And one day he's like, oh, wait, can I leave her with you guys for 2 weeks? And I'll give you $50 a week for, just to feed her, I guess. And they were like, okay, no problem, And 2 weeks turned into 2 months, and they're like, hey, when are you going to come pick her up? She's kind of your responsibility. And he was like, no, give me a few more weeks. Apparently, he was buying time with them because he was offering me to other people within our church.
Oh, wow.
He was just trying to see, okay, if I can give her away, to somebody else for 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, just buying his time.
Wow.
I don't know what his intent or for how long he was trying to do that for, but I guess, Claudia and Edgar were putting pressure on him, like, hey, you got to come pick her up. He apparently was offering me to like single men in our church. Like,
oh my gosh.
He was just trying to relieve his duty, he was, and now when I look back at that, I'm like, can you imagine like what would have happened to me if I ended up in the wrong hands?
I know.
It's so crazy.
It is
but
crazy.
Of course, thank God for Pastor Edgar and for Claudia.
Yes.
When they figured out what was going on, they were just like, all right, that's fine. Like, we'll just keep her. Like, what are they going to do? They're like, what are we going to do? Put her on the streets? Like, so they actually began, legal process to legally adopt me.
Okay.
And that's how I am Pastor Edgar's daughter and Pastora Claudia's daughter. Yeah. So funny, because when people like, when they say, oh, this is my daughter, and I'm a 30-year-old married woman with kids, they're like, whoa, what? Like, yeah. When did you have her? But legally, yes, they did become my parents. Thank God. Yeah. They legally became my, I remember with the adoption process, they asked, if I wanted to change my name. I was born a Lopez. Yeah. And then, they were like, do you want to change to a Rivera? And this was the time, Ceci, where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have like a family. Like, wow. I'm gonna have like the same last name. Like, I'm going to have a mom. I'm going to have a dad. Like, yeah. And I had a family, but it was a broken family.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was inconsistent. It was very, I had a dad, but I didn't have a dad. I had a mom, but my mom left. So I was, so yeah, I remember they asked me, do you want to change your last name? I'm like, yes, like all 5 of us are going to have like the same last name. Yes. Yeah. I actually remember the day. I remember when the adoption process, the conversation came up. They contacted my mom first, and she said, no, like, that's my kid. And they're like, okay, well, we'll send her to you. And she's like, oh, no, no.
Oh my goodness.
So she signs the papers. And the day that my dad signed the papers, he came over our house, sat on our dinner table, signed them. Didn't really he didn't really say much. He just signed them, looked over it, and I can just like, I remember just like just, leaning over in Pastor Edgar, and he's just like holding me while I'm like bawling.
Wow.
I was like, this whole time it was inconsistently having him, and I felt like the one chance that I can have him all to myself, he just gave me away.
Wow.
But what can I do? I couldn't ask for better legal parents.
Exactly. Yes.
So years go after, throughout my whole life, and all my sisters, they can say the same thing. My dad, he used us like a punching bag.
Okay.
He knew that his inconsistency was bad, and he knew that when he came, we loved it. Yeah. I mean, we loved to have a dad. You felt protected. You felt like, okay, this is going to be good. He's going to stay this time. And it was on and off. Even when I lived with Edgar and Claudia, he still felt he can still come in and out of my life from then. My dad's like, in and out of our lives, like even as him no longer having me as his responsibility. Whenever things didn't go his way, or he was upset about something, or if he didn't have a woman at the time,
Mm-hmm.
he would reach out to one of us to see who he can take his anger off on.
Wow.
He would just come and, like, demand certain things, demand to be respected as a dad he thought he was,
Yeah.
and I don't know why. My dad had a very strong character. He was a very strong character, nice, but when he was in his mood,
Mm-hmm.
he was very abusive, very in any shape and form. Like,
Yeah.
he couldn't no longer be physical abusive towards us,
Mm-hmm.
because now we had someone to protect us, and that was Pastor Edgar.
Yeah.
He could, Pastor Edgar would never let him physically or, some whatever
Yeah.
abuse my Claudia,
Mm-hmm.
and now no longer me.
Yeah.
And my other two sisters had husbands too. They have husbands, and no husband's gonna allow anybody to disrespect their wives. And
Exactly.
so yeah, my dad's constantly in and out, just so common. Every time he did, whatever he said, we did. Whatever he said to us, whether it was nice or not nice, we took it. We never, disrespected him, because, we're always taught honor your father and your mother.
Wow.
And so being obedient, that's what we did. We never, he would call us all kinds of names. Like, I was dragged to the floor with the things that he would call us, and we were just okay, like, I think, like, most kids would just flip out and don't call me that, and we just took it in. Took it in.
Wow.
Yeah, he was special. He was not really a loving dad. But eventually, of course, I have even though he wasn't a great example of a father, God blessed me with Pastor Edgar, who, it's so weird, he's my brother-in-law, but legally my dad. Like, but thank God for him. I'm sure that, everybody who knows him knows what a great man he is. But I get to know him, and be loved by him on a whole other personal level,
absolutely.
And loves and supports, and to this day he is. I can't get over it. I'm like a grown woman, and this man will call me, and he'll be like, "Are you okay? Is Robert treating you okay?" Like, like, I'm fine. He still treats me like his daughter, and that's why, to this day, I say he's my dad, and he says I'm his daughter.
That's awesome.
He never hesitated, on taking the responsibility of caring for me as a daughter, and not being his biological. He always treated me like I was always included, which was so different than what I had. He would always make sure that I was well, that I was okay, that if I was sick, he was there. Like, he was always taking care of me. He was always loving on me, always disciplining me, which is another great form of parenthood. So he was the dad that I didn't have. He became that dad. And imagine, like, you being a newlywed, and your wife telling you, "Hey, yeah, gotta raise my sister too as our own." Like, he took that responsibility and owned it.
That's beautiful.
So that's really just that. My parents left, and I'm adopted by Pastor Edgar and Pastor Claudia. And in 2012, it was like summer 2012, there was an incident that happened with my dad. I don't know much details about it, but I know that there was an incident that made him that got him upset. And he was, when he was upset, he took it up on whoever, and he would hurt the most, and that was us, me and my sisters. And he had made a comment that things didn't go his way, and he said that we were no value to him. Like, this is the time where he was just like, you know what, you guys are nothing to me.
Wow.
And I know, imagine, you know, your parent, you hearing that from your parent, from your dad, and saying that, you know, those words were so hurtful to hear. And so we never spoke again. We were like, okay, Dad, like, if that's how you feel about us, then there's no reason to continue this, you know, the hurt, the pain. Like, you go your way, we go our way.
Yeah.
And my sisters were such a unit. My biological sisters were such a unit that, you know, we were just like, okay, you say that about one, you say about all.
Exactly.
And, you know, throughout this whole time with my mom leaving and my dad being inconsistent, it was always us taking care of each other, or them taking care of us. And so, yeah, all four of us decided, you know what? Okay, that's fine. Wow. And years go by, and in 2014, I'm getting married at the end of the year. So we're planning my wedding, and I'll be honest with you, he's not even in my mind. Like, I'm like, I haven't talked to him in a few years, and didn't get to meet my husband. He was no part in that. Yeah. When I met my husband, I met him, but when my husband wanted to date me, you know, the person I felt he needed to ask for approval was not my real dad. It was Pastor Edgar, who was my dad, you know. Exactly. And so my real dad was never, you know, thought about, to be honest with you. So my husband had to win over Pastor Edgar, and you know, ask for approval for boyfriend, girlfriend, for marriage. And so, you know, party continues. We're planning our wedding, and that was such a great experience. I feel like God knew that my dad could not be a part of my life in this season of my life. It was one of the happiest seasons of my life. Here I go, I'm about to marry a man who, you know, that loves me unconditionally. And I knew my dad was always the kind that, you know, he would ruin it. He would just ruin it. It wasn't about him. He wasn't the king of the house. He wasn't the man of the hour. Then he would ruin it for me. Yeah. And so I don't know how he found out, actually, that I was getting married. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I guess chismosos, you know, I don't know, because no, it wasn't like, you know, I don't know how he knew that I was getting married. And somebody wrote me on I can say this, my half sister wrote me and said that I broke my dad's heart. Oh, wow. Because he wasn't invited to my wedding. And she was, you know, my dad was never really with her mom. So she wasn't used to having my dad in her life. And I guess now all of a sudden he's in her life, and she feels like she had the right to, like, write me and tell me, hey, you broke his heart. You didn't invite him to your wedding. Little did she know, you know? Yeah. So I was just like, okay. I remember, like, calling Claudia, and I'm like, listen, I'm not going to write her back because I don't want to lose it. You know, it was not good to hear that, because she had no idea that my dad had broken my heart repeatedly, many, many, many times. Yeah. So, yeah, you know, I remember, and there was other comments too, actually. There was comments that, you know, he needed to walk me down the aisle. And I was like, are you guys kidding? Oh my goodness. Like, just because he was my biological dad didn't mean that. I feel like things like that, you earn it. You know, that's a privilege. Absolutely. So I remember, you know, there was no questions about it. My dad and the dad and the mom that raised me are the ones that are giving me away. And Pastor Edgar and Pastor Claudia, they walked me down the aisle and gave me away to my husband. Wow, that's awesome. And I don't regret one bit of it. They beautiful. Gave me away. My mom did attend my wedding. Okay. My mom and I relationship, you know, where it's like a distant relationship. Yeah. But close enough to where we're on speaking terms. Like, yeah. You know, I try to. She's never really brought any of the past up. and I don't either. I honestly, I feel like I'm good. You know, I wouldn't change being raised by Claudia and Edgar.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just, you know, we speak, you know, she'll call me, I'll call her. But it's not really like, you know, a mom and daughter relationship. Like,
yeah,
I guess I call her just so, you know, we're good. Like, how are
exactly.
you? I'm good. And, you know, how are you? I'm good too, Mom. Like, so she did come to my wedding, and she walked. She was, you know, in the front as my mom. I acknowledged that, you know, at the end of the day, she's my mom.
Yeah.
She's my mom, and she walked with her husband. And they have a son. It's my brother.
Okay.
And we all have a good relationship. You know, it's a relationship that, you know, I'm thankful for, because at least she's in my life. You know.
Yeah.
She's in my life, and now she's at my, you know, she came to my wedding, and we danced, and that night was just, I couldn't have asked for better. You know, I didn't have my dad. That was the important part. So yeah. Actually, I got married 12, 13, 14, December 13th, 2014. Not
That's
planned.
So cool. Really?
Not planned. It was so weird.
God.
So weird. But yeah, I got engaged August 2014, and I get engaged. I get in the car, and I'm like telling Claudia, like, oh my God, let's start planning. You know, we'll get married next spring. And my husband's like, no, we're getting married in 4 months. I'm like, whoa, what?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we got married that day, and
that's awesome.
It was so crazy. But anyways, yeah, I get married. My dad, there's still no contact with him. We don't know anything about him. We knew he was married to another woman. My dad got married a few times, and this is the one woman that the last woman he married. We knew he was married. We knew he lived nearby. But we didn't know, you know, whether he was healthy. We didn't know whether he was, I don't know, if he was going to church. We didn't know anything about him. I want to say one of my sisters tried reaching out to him, and he just didn't pick up. He denied her calls. But anyways, just years go by. You know, I last year, February 24, 2019, you know, I wake up, we go to church, you know, that you get like a gut feeling that today is just gonna be like, something's off. Yeah. And I remember having that feeling like, wait a minute, today, but I was pregnant. I was in the beginning, the early stages of my pregnancy, so I didn't know if it was like my hormones or if like it was just like I remember this feeling, and it's so hard to explain, but I went to church and I'm like, something's not right. Yeah. And I come back, I'm laying on my couch. I'm like just trying to take my, you know, my Sunday nap. And I get a knock on the door, and it is Claudia, Viviana, Margarita, or my sisters, my biological sisters, and Marie. Was technically my niece, but she doesn't like being called my niece. She's my sister. Yeah. She hates it. She's like, I'm not your niece. They come to my house. I was surprised because first, you know, you guys know Pastor Claudia and Nani live in Orlando. Yes. And now I live in Boca. So they, you know, I was like, what the heck? What are you guys doing here? Like, what do you know, what are you guys here? And they just like stared at me and like a blank face. And I'm like, hello, like what's happening? They're like, Papi died. Oh, wow. And I was like, at first I was like, what do you mean? Like, and then it just hit me. Like she repeated it, and now it hit me, and my Papi died, like just like that. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I remember the feeling was so awful. You know, as someone losing a parent is hard. Yes, absolutely. But losing a parent with like not even being on speaking terms was, I was like what in the, I mean, it was so bad that I don't remember much of what happened after I found out, but I just like, I remember my husband had to like walk me to the couch because I was pregnant. I was about 16, 15 weeks pregnant with my second daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So, so apparently, my dad, being the mujeriego that he was, the womanizer that he was, he was married here. He lived here in the Palm Beach area. He was married he had his wife here, but he was visiting Guatemala because he had, from what I believe, there was like 2 women that he was visiting.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
In Guatemala. When he passed away, there was like multiple, no, I'm his girlfriend. No, I'm his girlfriend.
Oh my goodness.
He went to Guatemala to visit 1 or 2. I don't know how many he had, but we know it was one particular one. Got sick. My dad was a very healthy man.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden he gets sick. And that turned into, I want to say it was the flu turned into pneumonia from pneumonia.
Yeah.
He didn't care for it, so it became diabetic, and then the diabetes caused a stroke because they weren't controlling his sugar.
Yeah.
And no one took care of him. Apparently he was with this one woman, and no one was caring for him. Like he was sick, and nobody was there to care for him. He had his brothers, his sisters that all live in Guatemala, and were all around him during this, and no one took care of him.
Yeah.
And he died.
Wow.
He died unexpectedly. I'm pretty sure he didn't think he'd go that way, but that was he was invincible in his mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he passed away.
Wow.
There was so many questions.
Yeah.
So many questions. The whys, the hows, the why didn't you reach out to us? Like, all these years he had caused our pain.
Yeah.
We were the daughters. We were the daughters, not to say that we were perfect, but we were the daughters, and we were supposed to be under his care.
Yeah.
And he didn't do his daddy duties. He chose women over us repeatedly. He would hurt us verbally. He knew that we loved him. We would always have loved him and cared for him, and he knew that. So he knew what to do to hurt us. He knew that leaving us would hurt us. He knew talking to us a certain way would hurt us because we loved him so much.
Yeah.
But he chose women over us. And, the idea of him being with a woman that wasn't even his wife, and he got sick, she didn't take care of him. Having 4 daughters that would have taken care of him is just wild to me. Like, why did you choose that? Like, you could have been okay.
Yeah.
So the day after he passed away, my sisters are on a plane to go bury him. It's expensive. If he died here is one thing. I believe he had like his everything paid, for if he had happened to pass away here, but he ended up passing away in Guatemala. So to bring his body to here, it was just going to be too much money. So, we all came in agreement that it'd be best for him to get buried there. His family's buried there, his mom, his dad, so, but in Guatemala, you can't just you don't wait 2-3 weeks to get everything arranged. Like there, the next day you're getting put on the ground. And so I couldn't go. I was pregnant, like I said, I was pregnant, and my doctor advised me not to go because Zika is active in Guatemala, and I found myself having to pick, whether I need to go bury my dad or protect myself and my daughter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, I protect my daughter, and I didn't go. My sisters all went, and they were there while they buried him, and they took off, they left everything. They say that they left everything, that it felt good Not felt good that he died, but felt good that it was done.
Yes.
Like he could no longer come back and hurt us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we were all hurt by him in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, after he passed away, I can't even talk about him without feeling some type of way, or crying about him, because I haven't seen where he lays. I have a 6-month-old. I'm not ready to leave her yet. And I almost don't want to, like, let it be real that he's gone, because, there was no closure. I would be lying to you if I said, that I don't find myself, like, asking God, like, that's it. Like, he put us in so many situations, that we were left alone, that we were left with nobody to protect us. He had hurt us. There was words that he shouldn't have never said to us. There was not we didn't want apologies, but we just wanted our dad. Even as grown women, we were just like, man, we would love to just get a phone call from him, and we didn't get that. He hurt us. He hurt us, and then he's gone. Yeah. So, it was a lot of questions, and we were like, it's not fair, but, time goes by, and we're just like, what? God, at the end of the day, God was just protecting us, from more hurt, more pain, hurt, now that we're moms, it's like, wait a minute, now God was protecting us, but also our kids, because we believe, he would have. So yeah, he passed away, and he just, it's, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Oh man, yeah, just looking back, I'm just, thankful that throughout constantly never having a stable home growing up, I was always being looked out for. I was never truly abandoned by people who truly loved me, my sisters, and that we still remain the same, and close, and it's so beautiful to see that, like, from 4 girls that didn't have parents that loved them and cared for them. There's 4 marriages. Pastor Edgar, Viviana's married to Pastor Jose. He's the senior pastor now of our church since my grandma retired. And Margarita's married to my brother-in-law, Kenson. And I'm married to my husband. And all my sisters have been married for over 20 years and close to 20 years. They've been long, happy marriages, thank God. And I'm only 5, but I just got married.
Yeah,
they're much older than I am. Yes. So, and out of 4 marriages, there's 10 kids. Wow. I've had the 10th. I've given them the 10th grandchild. Yeah. And we're a close-knit family, and it's so beautiful. I'm blessed that I always had my sisters, and plus Pastor Edgar. I don't think that without my sisters and Edgar, I would be here, honestly, and also my mom. I'm thankful that my mom's still well and alive. That there's still a connection between her and I. She loves my kids, which for me makes up for everything.
Yes, absolutely.
To me, do it to whatever. For me, it's one thing, but my kids, being the abuela that my kids deserve, it's beyond to me. And now, I have my family of my own. I have my husband, and who I'm blessed with. You know, he's not abusive in any shape, in any form. He's loving, faithful. We serve in, you know, church together, and we have 2 girls that we are raising, and I know that they will never experience anything close to what I had to experience growing up.
Yes.
So that's how Pastor Edgar and Pastor Claudia are my parents.
Wow. Wow, Alexandra, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm like so honored to hear this story, you know, firsthand. And I'm sure that a lot of people who know your parents, you know Pastor Edgar and Pastora Claudia, like now it, you know, they probably know of you guys, but they don't know the true story.
The true story, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just so happy that you are here to share it with me. You know, all I see is that throughout all of these situations, these unfortunate situations that you went through, like the hand of God was always there to protect you either way, you know, and even in moments where you probably didn't see it, the hand of God was still present, you know, and his protection was
right.
completely over you. And that's honestly, you know, that's something as you know, those of us who have testimonies, you know, and at the moment we don't see it, but when you look back and you're able to testify, you begin to see, you know, that God was there because he's, you know, the father to the fatherless, you know.
Right, right, which is so crazy. Someone actually said to me when they said, you know, like, you know, there's so many questions about my dad's death, you know, and how he's just gone and how we just wanted a dad. And someone told me, you know, hey, like, you had a father this whole time. Like, your father was always there. You know, he was there before you even knew he was there.
Exactly.
And yeah, he's never left my side, that's for sure. Always protected us, and to the point that my sisters and I are like, why us?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many kids that get left and get abandoned, and they end up in such bad situations, and, you know, in the foster care system, and you know, in all these different places, and that things happen to them that, and we're like, why us, Lord? Like, why did you pick us for?
Yeah.
And why did you protect us? Like, what's your, like, I know we have purposes, but like, how big are they? Because why us, you know? Like, wow. Like, I know it is to, do we share, we continue to share our story, and and it's, you know, just to show the world, you know, how big God is. And when you're chosen, you're chosen, you know?
Absolutely. And I think, like, you know, from everything that you've shared with me, that's what I see. I feel like this is just the start for you, Alexandra, you know, the start of, you know, you've been walking in this purpose this whole time, but I think now, like, opening up, sharing your story, I feel like from here on out, you'll be able to, you know, share your story more freely. I feel like as you keep telling your story, you'll feel some sense of freedom. You'll feel some sense of healing. And I testify through that, because that's the reason why I do benevolence as well. You know, because I know that when I gave my testimony almost 2 years ago, I felt so free, so healed. I felt like, you know, I through my story, so many people were you know, were touched and were blessed and were inspired, you know, and I know that that was like the beginning for me, you know what I mean? So I know that that's the same for you, you know, as you continue telling your story to, you know, your community, you know, your church, to people around you, you know, I know that it's going to leave a seed. You're going to sow a seed in their lives, and then from there, you know, you'll see those fruits.
When we shared our story at that one, that camp, there was young girls coming up and saying, hey, I don't have a dad. Like, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, in moments that you feel like you're the only one. No, you're not, you know, and young girls, I realized, you know, at camp, that these young girls were looking, and they're currently going through that hurt. You know, so when you said, you know, God, the beginning of this year, in 2020, I knew it. God was like telling me, you're stepping out. You're stepping out of your comfort.
Wow.
You are awesome. and I'm not one to like open up about, you know, this in detailed and just like talk, hey, you know, what happened to me? Like, no, like it's just, you know, and plus speaking to crowds, speaking to, you know, but no, this year, you know, he's like, nope, you're stepping out of your comfort. And here we are.
That's awesome. I'm so happy. I'm so proud of you for taking this step, you know, because I know it's big. I have a couple questions I wanted to ask you before we conclude this conversation. I just wanted to just ask you, how were you able to heal, you know, from what your parents put you through, or is it still ongoing? You know, is the process still kind of like, is that wound still exposed? You know what I mean? It's like, you know.
I don't know, that I honestly would say that the wounds, you know, I thought the wounds were healed.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, me getting married, not having him on my wedding and having kids, I was like, fine, I'm good. Like,
yeah,
I'm fine. Like, I've made it out of that, of taking all that in from my dad, that I was like, I'm fine. But when he died, I felt wounds were just patched up.
Yes.
And they were reopened. And I don't, you know, obviously he suddenly passed away and there was no closure.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things that just started to come, you know, that just, I don't know, I thought that they didn't matter, but they did, you know. You're a child and you hear you're stupid, you think it's not a big deal, but as a child, you know, they take in all that stuff.
Exactly.
And you know, you wouldn't call your child that because you know it would be hurtful, but and not me, I was just like, oh, it's not a big deal, you know. But no, like when you remember all the things he called and that he called me and the things that he would do, like moments that, I mean, I'll be honest with you, there was time I saw certain things my dad doing with women.
Yeah.
Because they were at that, I was just like, it's not a big deal. But now I'm like, whoa, 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 like you put me in those situations. Like, I don't know if seeing his grave, seeing where he lays, that he's gone. If that's, I don't want to sound ruthless either.
Yeah.
But I don't know if seeing, you know, his grave will heal some. Claudia says, I need to go. She's always calling me. She's like, you need to go. Stop making excuses. Like, you need to go. And I'm just like, yeah, it's okay. Like, one day.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think that being able to speak to him one more time would have been good. Obviously, healing is just the process that I just can only trust in God.
Yes, absolutely.
Trust in God to definitely work within me. You know, and I don't know, it's just so hard. Like, I feel like once I see his grave, I'll be like, I'm able to say a few last things to him.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I completely understand. And then the next question I wanted to ask you was, what is one Bible verse that you hold dear to your heart? And, you know, obviously in general or regarding to your testimony.
You know, Psalms 139.
Okay.
Specifically like 13 through 18. Those words mean a lot. There was times where, you know, the enemy would put certain things in my mind that I, you know, those words from my dad telling me I didn't value him were constantly repeated in my head. And I know that that was just the enemy attacking. And those words, you know, and that psalm is just like, wait a minute, God created me.
Yes.
Because, you know, he created me. Because he created me, I'm not junk. You know, like there's a purpose, you know, and in those, you know, he knitted me in my mother's womb.
Yes.
I was wonderfully made. Like, how huge is that?
Yes.
You know, like he like took his time with me. He made me with love and I don't know, you know, he loved me before I was even born.
Exactly.
Like, that's just that when I read that, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, like the Father of Fathers loves me. Like my creator created me to be wonderful, to be fearless, to be, I'm okay. Like that's special to me. Like I'm constantly like, okay, like that's like my boost.
That's wonderful. That's great. My next question for you is, how were you able to like honor your parents when you felt that they, like, especially now, like when you don't feel, well, no, in the past, because I'm sure, like, I don't know how to explain this. Like growing up, you were getting hurt by your mom, hurt by your dad, but like, how were you able to honor them still? So I'm guessing well, I guess my question is, were you Christian? Did you become a Christian after Claudia had met Pastor Edgar, or
no? When Claudia started going to church, she brought all of us.
Okay.
And I was super young. I was, way before my mom left, and I was about 5. So I was raised in church technically.
Okay.
I didn't become technically a pastor's kid by then, but I was raised in church. The minute she started going, it was like where she's bringing all of us.
Yeah. So how were you able to like honor your parents?
Claudia, she was always reminding me. She would always tell me these words. One day you're going to be a mom.
Wow.
and now I totally get it.
Yeah.
You're not perfect. You can be the mom. You can think you're the best mom, but you always make mistakes,
Exactly. Yep.
She would always tell me, Ale, you're going to be a mom one day. Remember that. Like, if I felt like my mom didn't deserve something, a certain privilege, she would be in the back of my ear. Remember, you're going to be a mom one day.
Yep.
And I would say, you know what? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And she's, at the end of the day, she's my birth mom. And I have to give her, and I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of still struggle with that.
Yeah.
At my daughter's births, she was there, but I wanted Claudia at my side. And I don't know if, there's certain things that I'm just like, I can't give her a certain privilege, but I respect her and she respects me, and that's cool. You know what I mean? So I still love her. I still honor her as my mom. We respect each other, and my dad, I always did. Even when he would threaten me, I'd be like, okay, like, I just knew that one day I was also going to be a parent.
Yep.
And no parent is perfect. At the end of the day, you just honor them.
That's good. My next question is, as a mother, like, how are you going to teach your girls to honor and extend mercy to their grandparents? So in this case, your grandmother, well, your mom.
My mom. Yeah.
After everything you've been through, like,
my dad never got to meet my girls since he wasn't speaking to us when my first daughter was born, and then he passed before my other one. But my mom, every time she's around, I always make sure that my daughter, respect her. That I don't force, like, I don't want to force them to do anything that they don't want to do,
Exactly.
But for the most part, Amelia is the oldest. Emily's still young, but Amelia, she's very loving. So when she's around my mom's the type of person that comes with like all these gifts for her. I brought you, all this and stuff, and Amelia loves it. And I'm like, okay, go give Abuela a hug. I always make sure that, and then that she just is loving to her. And at the end of the day, that's her grandma.
Exactly.
The way she's my mom, that's her grandma.
Yep.
And, she shows nothing but love towards my daughter.
Okay.
So I can't really tell my daughter, don't treat her a certain way. Treat because she treated me a certain way. Exactly. At the end of the day, she loves her. They love each other, and that's and my mom making it down here for their births and their baby showers is so big to me.
Yeah.
Because she didn't have to.
Yeah.
Knowing the place she would be in. Knowing that who would get that.
Yeah.
That the one would be next to me wouldn't be her, and still making it and still taking that. I gotta give it to her.
Exactly. Yeah.
I gotta make sure, okay, you know what? you weren't there for me, but you came down for their showers. You cooked for their showers. You were present. You came for their births. You were there the day, the day I gave birth to my girls. You were there at my side. Actually, one of the big things I have that I will always be forever grateful is that my Amelia was premature, and we were so scared. She was 6 weeks early.
Oh wow!
And my water had broken, and it was almost 24 hours, and I wasn't dilating. And I remember like being so scared because they were talking C-section now.
Yeah.
She was in there for too long. I was low on fluids, and they were just like, okay, we're gonna make the C-section talk, and nothing against it, but that's not what I wanted.
Exactly.
And my mom came around and she's like, are you okay? And I was like, Mommy, I don't want a C-section. And she's like, let's pray. Oh, wow. She lays hands on me with my grandma, and they start praying. Kid you not, seconds later, the doctor's like, let's check you. I think you're ready. And sure enough, I was ready. Wow. So it's just like little things like that I'm forever grateful. And
exactly.
And for that, for her being at their births, it just shows to me that she's there and she loves my kids.
Yes.
And my kids have to love her back. That's grandma. That's abuela.
Yep. That's beautiful. That's awesome. Thank you. How has your past changed you as a mother? So I'm sure that what you went through, obviously it's as a mother, it changes your whole perspective. So how has that changed you?
The goal was always to have a family.
Yeah.
Even when I hated to get disciplined at home, I knew that, like, how do I put it in the right? Like, I knew that they were only guiding me towards getting married with, getting married, leaving their house married and going and having kids, like living my life. And, and that was the goal. The goal was to obey, get married, and go and have kids. Like, I didn't want to go off and just have kids. Like, the goal was always to find a man that loved me and, accepted me, accepted my past, accepted my family, my lifestyle, get married, and give my kids a home.
Yeah.
And now that I have kids, now raising them, I try to constantly remind them that mommy's here. Mommy loves them. My daughter is constantly asking me for hugs, and to me, and that, it's to me, it's big that I'm here to give her those hugs, know, and I'm, and setting an example. I didn't have that, I didn't, I didn't have that example, and but just taking and knowing that I have to first trust in God and being an example to my daughters of what a godly woman is, to respect, to love, to serve. And we're raising our girls in church. My daughter loves to be in danzas in church. And importantly, giving them stability.
Yes, absolutely.
Stability, all these places I named that I lived, like, I go back and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I lived in so many places. Like, I didn't know what we were going to call home next, and for how long. And, giving them a home, giving them a home where they're safe, where they're loved, where they're protected, where there's a mommy and a daddy, they're safe. They're safe here. The only place my daughter has moved is from the house where she was born to the house that we live in now. And that's it. This is for our forever home now. So she, it's just giving her stability, giving her, a happy marriage, working on my marriage, putting God first, because that's important. That's what my parents didn't have, and for my girls to be able to see that mommy, daddy love each other and love them, and that we respect each other, as a couple, that we communicate, just little stuff that, that I didn't get to see. Exactly. My daughters, actually, we have this, my daughter hates that my husband gives me, if I'm my husband's last kiss before he goes to work, she gets upset.
Oh my God.
She has to be his last kiss. Like, you know, but is she seeing that we're all just loving on one another,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And
yes.
And that daddy loves mommy, but daddy also loves her,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And just stability. How important is that?
That is
like,
so important. Wow.
yeah.
That's beautiful. And then the last question that I have for you is, what advice can you give to someone who is dealing with like rejection or abandonment, from a parent, a guardian?
Well, we said this always, that even when you don't see it, God's there.
Yes.
God is there, and it's bigger than what it seems. Like, it is. He's there. He's there all the time, and he's protecting us. And no matter who rejects us, he doesn't. We actually do the opposite. We reject him. We push him away.
Yep.
We do it to him, but at the end of the day, you come running to him and he's there with arms open. Like, come to me. He's always there. And the toughest, the hardest, he's there at all times. Growing up, you don't realize it. That I didn't realize how he was always looking out for me, but he used so many people, to protect me, and yeah, he's always there. I mean, of course it's important, to have a mom and a dad, but we have something bigger and something greater, and that's God. Amen. And his love,
Amen. That's beautiful. Thank you. A couple things that I had also kind of like, I wanted to share, is the word of God says in Hebrews 4:15, it says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin." So basically, I read that verse just to say that, like, Jesus came to earth, he went through the humanness of suffering. He was rejected by his family, by his followers, by his community, even by God himself, when he asked God to take the cup away from him in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus understands our pain and our sufferings. And the greatest thing is that we have God's eternal love and his unconditional acceptance,
Right.
And he's the father to the fatherless. He's the protector of the widows that the Bible says in Psalm 68:5. So if you feel rejected, and these are for my listeners, if you feel rejected by anyone growing up, if you didn't have a mom in your life or a dad in your life, or rejected by others, period, in any way, shape, or form, God's love is eternal. God is there, and he is the father of the fatherless. He is there to protect you, and he will deliver you, out of your troubles. And he is near to the brokenhearted. And just cast your cares upon him, call upon Jesus's name, and he will lift you up, and he will heal you from your wounds. So I just wanted to share that, and I wanted to thank you, Alexandra, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
I just know that from here on out, you're gonna just walk in boldness and continue to use this story, to expand the kingdom, to help those that have been through what you've been through, or who are currently going through what you're going through.
Right.
But I would just wanted to thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, no. It's just, I know some don't get that opportunity that I got, being adopted by the most wonderful people in the world.
Yes.
Some people just don't get that chance, but I believe that in the midst of whatever, there's always, the love of God, and I realize that I'm so blessed to be able to have had them.
Yes.
And those are my parents at the end of the day.
Yes, absolutely.
those people are the ones that I always tell my husband, when they get old, they're coming to live with us. Like, those, not everybody is so blessed. And I have to take that. And I realize that I'm beyond blessed and loved, that I was able to get that opportunity to be adopted by them.
Yes, that's beautiful. Well, there you have it, girl. I want to thank you, Alexandra, for sharing your story and for joining me on Benevolence.
Thank you.
I know that this is just the beginning for you, girl. You're a blessing to me, you're a blessing to others, and I just want to thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much. It's definitely nerve-wracking, but it was good.
Yes,
I feel good.
Yes, you did great. And thank you all for tuning into Benevolence, where kindness matters and all are welcome to the table. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Benevolence Podcast or at I am Sassy Diaz to know a little bit more about me and Benevolence. Benevolence Podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeart, and the Stitcher app. Stay tuned for our new Benevolent Wednesday feature, where different women share their stories of what God has done in their life. Stay tuned for next Monday's episode of Benevolence. You don't want to miss it. Bye!